Inflammation, as a symptom. The localized protective response produced by injury or destruction of tissues, which serves to destroy, dilute, or wall off both the injurious agent and the injured tissue. Or, inflammation is the body's attempt at self-protection, the aim being to remove harmful stimuli, including damaged cells, irritants, or pathogens, and begin the healing process. Inflammation does not mean infection, even when an infection causes inflammation. Infection is caused by a bacterium, virus or fungus, while inflammation is the body's response to it. The inflammatory response can be provoked by physical, chemical, and biologic agents, including mechanical trauma, exposure to excessive amounts of sunlight, X-rays and radioactive materials, corrosive chemicals, extremes of heat and cold, or by infectious agents, such as bacteria, viruses, and other pathogenic microorganisms. Although these infectious agents can produce inflammation and infections. 5 cardinal signs of inflammation are following: heat, redness, swelling, pain, and loss of function. These are manifestations of the physiologic changes that occur during the inflammatory process. The 3 major components of this process are: 1. Changes in the level of blood vessels and the rate of blood flow through them. 2. Increased capillary permeability. 3. Leukocytic exudation. These changes begin soon after injury and progress at varying rates, according to the extent of injury. They start with dilation of the arterioles and the opening of new capillaries in the area. This causes an accelerated flow of blood, accounting for the signs of heat and redness. Next follows increased permeability of the microcirculation, which permits leakage of protein-rich fluid out of small blood vessels and into the extravascular fluid compartment, accounting for the inflammatory edema. Definition of edema. Edema is a condition of abnormally large fluid volume in the circulatory system or in tissues between the body's cells/interstitial spaces. Leukocytic exudation occurs in the following sequence. Firstly, the leukocytes move to the endothelial lining of the small blood vessels and line the endothelium in a tightly packed formation. Eventually, these leukocytes move through the endothelial spaces and escape into the extravascular space. Once they are outside the blood vessels, they are free to move and, by chemotaxis, are drawn to the site of injury. Accumulations of neutrophils and macrophages at the area of inflammation act to neutralize foreign particles. By phagocytosis. Chemical mediators of inflammation are following. Chemical mediators of the inflammatory process include a variety of substances originating in the plasma and the cells of uninjured tissue, and possibly from the damaged tissue. 1. Vasoactive amines, such as histamine and serotonin. 2. Plasma endopeptidases that comprise 3 interrelated systems: the kinin system that produces bradykinin, the complement system that produces proteins that interact with antigen-antibody complexes and mediate immunologic injury and inflammation, and the clotting system that increases vascular permeability and chemotactic activity for the leukocytes. 3. Prostaglandins, which can reproduce several aspects of the inflammatory process. 4. Neutrophil products. 5. Lymphocyte factors. 6. Other mediators, such as slow-reacting substance of anaphylaxis and endogenous pyrogen. Hormonal response. Some hormones, such as cortisol, have an anti-inflammatory action that limits inflammation to a local reaction, while others are pro-inflammatory. Thus, the endocrine system has a regulatory effect on the process of inflammation so that it can be balanced and beneficial in the body's attempts to recover from injury. Cellular changes in inflammation. 1. Margination of neutrophils brings these inflammatory cells in close contact with the endothelium. 2. Adhesion of platelets results in the release of mediators of inflammation and coagulation. Fibrin strands are the first signs of clot formation. 3. Pavementing of leukocytes is mediated by adhesion molecules activated by the mediators of inflammation released from platelets and leukocytes. Acute inflammation. Inflammation usually having sudden onset, marked by the classical signs of heat, redness, swelling, pain, and loss of function, and in which vascular and exudative processes predominate. Catarrhal inflammation, a form affecting mainly a mucous surface, marked by a copious discharge of mucus and epithelial debris. Chronic inflammation, prolonged and persistent inflammation marked chiefly by new connective tissue formation. It may be a continuation of an acute form or a prolonged low-grade form. Exudative inflammation, one in which the prominent feature is an exudate. Fibrinous inflammation, one marked by an exudate of coagulated fibrin. Granulomatous inflammation, a form, usually chronic, attended by formation of granulomas. Interstitial inflammation, inflammation which affecting chiefly the stroma of an organ. Parenchymatous inflammation, inflammation which affecting chiefly the essential tissue elements of an organ. Productive, proliferative inflammation, one leading to the production of new connective tissue fibers. Pseudomembranous inflammation, an acute inflammatory response to a powerful necrotizing toxin, characterized by formation on a mucosal surface of a false membrane composed of precipitated fibrin, necrotic epithelium, and inflammatory leukocytes. Purulent inflammation, suppurative inflammation. Serous inflammation, one producing a serous exudate. Subacute inflammation, a condition intermediate between chronic and acute inflammation, exhibiting some of the characteristics of each. Suppurative inflammation, one marked by pus formation.